Let's talk about blush today. You know that recently pink blushes have become all the rage, and of course it all started with the famous little Dior blush, which actually became popular on YouTube a couple of years ago, but apparently it is now everywhere. The funny thing is this shade actually does not look as pastel and as fairy-like on me as it does on a lot of people. On me this is actually a pretty deep blush, or at least quite an intense blush. And it's also because there's a pH element in here. On me it turns a little bit more of a peachy color instead of a pure pink. So I thought it would be fun to take a look at all of my pinky toned blushes. So I have everything from peachy pink to more violet pink, but not real peaches and not real violets, if you get what I mean. Of course I have a lot of face palettes. Not everything in here is new, not at all. I don't think anything in here is truly new. There are a couple of things that I have purchased over the last couple of months, but a lot of these things are a little bit older, and I figured it would be fun to see if there's something that you have in your collection or something similar, and I'll swatch everything on my arm and you can see what it looks like on my skin tone. Of course I can't take full credit for this idea because I did get the idea from Steph from Steph's Beauty Stash. I love watching her videos, and she recently did a couple of blush related videos, one of which was all about pink blushes. If I'm not mistaken, it was her. I'll link her down below. And well, I thought it was a wonderful idea, so I started thinking, do I actually own multiple pink blushes? Well, I have quite the assembly here. I think I have about 20 pink blushes here to talk about. Cream, liquid, powder, anything glowy, not so glowy. I'll talk about what I have on my cheeks there. This is a combination of a couple of things, and I think this is going to be a lot of fun. So if you're new here, welcome. Thank you so much for visiting my channel. My name is Cecile, I live in the Netherlands, and I upload twice a week on Wednesdays and Sundays with makeup related content and also a couple of fashion videos every now and then. So if that sounds interesting to you, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you here. And now let's get started. Also, quick disclaimer, I am still getting used to the camera. I am honestly trying to look at the camera and not right next to it, to myself. If I glance a little bit to the side, you know why that is. I am trying to work on it. So now let's get these sleeves up and going and let's get to swatching. So I'm going to take a little slide to the back on my little wheelie chair. Let's just start with the classic. This little Dior Backstage blush. I've had it for a while and I honestly didn't really love it that much. Not until it started to get a lot of hype. But you can see immediately, I hope it's visible enough. Of course, these are blushes. They're not going to give you full pigment, but I am building it up a little bit. This is quite a punchy color, and on me, it's actually more of a peach. I like it. I like this color. It gives me a nice flush. It truly does look a little bit more natural that way. But if I have a slightly more yellow undertone and I am very fair. I'm about an NC12. Blushes on me, they usually look a little bit peach, even the pinky ones. But especially this one because of that pH element. So this is the Dior. I would have loved to do cheek swatches for you, but the sun is already starting to go down and I don't think I have the time. If you'd like to see that, maybe as a couple of shorts, I could definitely make that a little project. So just let me know. Anyway, what I was saying is if I want this sort of pink, like truly, or even more of a baby pink, then I actually need to look at slightly more violet options or something of a lilac cream blush underneath. That's actually what I've been doing lately. And I see that my go-to blush isn't even here, and that's a problem. So I quickly realized that my favorite pink blush wasn't even here. So let's just talk about what is my personal favorite. So this is one that I really like, but it's not quite as baby pink or as light on me as on most people. What, however, is a little bit lighter and a little bit more actual pink on me is this blush from Shiseido. This is in the shade Aura Pink number 4, and this is their Inner Glow Cheek Powder. It's a very small and I think very sophisticated compact. And I actually had this in my product pan last year, and I tried to hit pan in it, and there's surprisingly a lot more product in here than you would think. But as you can see, this color is very light. I think if you're any deeper than me, this just doesn't work for you. But on me, especially when I pair this with more of a lilac cream underneath, this one turns pink on me. And the funny thing is, now that I'm swatching it underneath this one, it actually looks a little bit more mauve. So I'm curious to see how that works. Anyway, on my cheek, this looks quite nice and light, and with this one I have to be quite careful with the Dior. I can go overboard quite quickly and it looks a little bit clownish, but with the Shiseido I never have to do that. So I highly recommend this blush for anyone who is fair like I am. Alright, let's continue. I have this blush. This is from Chanel. This is the Joue Contrast in 72 Rose Initiale. And this is actually a really pretty one. It's more of a peachy pink. Ooh, there goes the brush. It's a baked formula. This isn't their old formula, so they reformulated about a year or a year and a half ago. Unfortunately, this one does have a little bit of heartburn, but you can still build it up and get a nice color out of it. So as you can see, this is definitely a lot more peachy than the other shades, but I think it still counts. Alright, one that is a little bit of a... I'm not really sure if it belongs here, but this is one from Essence. This is the blush in the color 10 Befitting. And I think this is more of a mauve, but I wanted to include it here. I think it's very interesting to see that some of these blushes are a lot more intense than the others. So I swatched all of these at least 3 times, and this one only once, and it's quite a bit darker. And it's definitely a little bit more brown, even though it looks like a pinky brown in the pan. Let's go to a blush trio, and I'm really surprised, or I'm really curious to see how this one works out. So this is the blush trio by ABH. I have the more orangey one as well, but this is the pinky one. I'll swatch them from left to right. So these are the shades. This is the more punchy pink one. This is the baby pink one. And then this is the more mauvey pink one. I'll swatch that second one and that third one again. And these blushes are just so nice and soft. I really think that ABH's blush formula, if they even have these little palettes anymore, is really underrated. It's really nice. So of course it's mainly this one that I'm interested in. This one is very punchy on me, but it can be a very pretty blush. And this one honestly looks the most like what I'm looking for. I thought that this would just be a little bit too bright for me, but I think this is the coolest tone pink that I've found so far. And then this one is definitely a little bit more like the Essence one or the Chanel one. Okay, this is a really old one. I just wanted to show you because I think the colors are so perfect. This is the Blush Sculpt from L'Oreal. I think this must be about 6 years old. This must be one of my oldest blushes in my collection. It's in the shade 201 Soft Rosy. And I figured maybe someone has it and wants to see how it compares to all these other blushes. So it has 3 tones. I'm only going to swatch the 2 pink ones. So we have a lighter one and a deeper one. This is the lighter one and this is the deeper one. And honestly, this lighter one, I'll swatch it a little bit more intensely. This is really good. It is a little bit more peachy. It's not quite as cool toned as the ABH one, but it is very light. And I like a light blush. And this one is also very pretty. I think that if I swirl these two together, I can probably get my shade as well. You see, this video is not just for you. It's also to help me to figure out which one of these blushes will provide my baby pink blush needs. Okay, now I have a very interesting one. This is the Givenchy Loose Powder Blush, the Prisme Libre, in the shade number 1, Mousseline Lila. and I'll show you the sides. It's 4 different compartments. Some of them are a little bit more lilac and some of them are a little bit more pink, and I'll swatch it right here. So honestly, I've been neglecting this blush because it's just a little bit tricky to use. Not a lot of product, or you need quite a bit of product, I feel like. So I just swatched a little bit here. But the powder is really nice and soft. And I kind of like the concept. And actually the video in which I reviewed and demoed this product, I must have been at least a year ago by now, it's the best watched video on my channel. So I guess people are interested in it. I just hardly ever think about using it. Even though this shade is beautiful. But as you can see, even swatching it with my finger, it's a lot more diffused than these other blushes. And that could be a pro for you. It is similar in tone to the Dior one, I think. It's a little bit more punchy. Let me try and build it up one more time. It's honestly not as dark as I thought it was. I thought this was a little bit too deep for me, but maybe this is a really good one. It's definitely a little bit more neon than these other ones. So shall we go over to the other arm? I have one that's also a little bit older and I think it's discontinued, but I just wanted to show you in case you own it. So this is from Ethos. It's a really bright pinky blush. And I bought this on sale for about a euro at some point. And I think this is truly quite a bit too deep for me. But we're going to see. I want to compare it to another blush that I actually have on right now and see if I can find a use for it that way. So yeah, it's definitely quite similar to the ABH one, but even more punchier. So if you have this one, the shade is Cherry Blossom, and you're a little bit deeper complected than I am, then this could be a nice one. So shall we go into our first palette? This is actually the face palette that I'm wearing on my cheeks right now. This is from Lunar Beauty. I think this is one of my favorite blush formulas and one of my favorite packagings in all of my collection. This is the Nude Prism blush palette. He also has another blush palette. I'm not sure what the name is. And I'm wearing this blush quite heavily and a little bit of this one, and I really like that combination. But now my curiosity lies in whether this is actually the same color as that Ethos one. Yeah, they're very similar. This one looks a little bit more red than this one, and this one is definitely a little bit softer. So I think it might be a good idea to give that Ethos one away to someone else, especially since I do have this one. But you can use it. I'll even add a little bit more. So this is the shade Kawaii. Okay, now I definitely took a little bit too much. But the Lunar Beauty blushes, they really blend out beautifully. Okay, yeah, I definitely made a mess. Alright, this is a blush video, right? Okay, I went overboard. I should have kept it with the little bit that I had on, but I want to show you how pretty these are. So that's the deeper one, and then the more mauvey one is called Pink Prince. And I'm going to swatch that underneath. And this is a really pretty blush that sort of matches any kind of cool toned look, but also pink looks. It's not very in your face, and if you compare it to the other blushes, I think it's very comparable to my Shiseido blush actually. Yeah, very much. And I may even like the formula of the Lunar Beauty one a little bit more, but I like all of these blushes a lot. I think it's hard to make a bad blush. So that was the Lunar Beauty palette. Then I want to show you 2 blushes in the Fire Queen Foroscope palette from Benefit Cosmetics. Of course, I'm talking about this one and this one. So there is a creamy pink or matte blush in here, which is called Starlet, which I do really like. It's a nice soft formula. It's definitely a little bit more muted and also a little bit more peach. And then the other one is called Solstice, and this is a baked blush. And I like this one because it's glowy. I actually really like a glowy blush. Only I don't own a lot of glowy blushes. So my trick is, I'll sneak this one in here. My trick is to use this powder from the Dior highlighting palette. This was a limited edition palette 1 or 2 years ago in rose gold. I really like this highlighter, but then I like to add a little bit of this one as a blush topper. So that's what I have on today as well. But I feel like with this shade I can get the same effect. Only you can see this is a very punchy shade on me. If I put this on, it sort of looks like this really quickly. But the formula is really pretty. So if Benefit still makes these palettes, I think this is a really good one. Then I want to talk about NARS. Because NARS of course has their iconic Orgasm blush. And I have one of them in a baked blush palette. This was a holiday release, like a vacation release, summer release, about 2 years ago. And the middle one over here is Orgasm, and it's a baked chalet formula. And this is one of my favorite blushes in my collection. I actually like this apricot-y one even more, but this one is more pink and it has a gold reflex. So it's a little bit tricky to combine. You can't wear it with two cool toned looks like this one because the gold makes it look a little bit funny. And you also can't wear it with two golden looks because there is a little bit of pink in there. So you have to sort of find a good in between to wear it. But this is a really nice formula. I think you can even see, I have a light here, that it's a little bit more glowy even than the Benefit one. So this is a really pretty one, but you can see that Orgasm is actually quite a peachy shade. If you compare it to all the other pinks, it looks most in color, most identical I think to the ABH one, which was more peach. And that makes me worried for the one that I wanted to try next. Because I also have Shelly here from Benefit. This is in their new blush formula. That's why I wanted to include it. And I think I still am going to swatch it because I was surprised by how pigmented this was. On a lot of people this looks very soft, very pretty. But on me this actually looks quite bright. I have to be very careful with it. As you can see, the shade is kind of similar to Orgasm. It's a true pinky peach. Then I want to talk about, this is my last powder product I think. So I want to talk about this Hourglass palette. Because there is a nice rosy shade in here. And I think they do sell this as a single. And this is called Sublime Flush. And this is a baked formula and this is actually one of my favorites as well. It's a little bit neon, which is very fun for me. So I think on a lot of people this looks very unimpressive. But as you can see on me it actually shows up nicely. It's lighter than I was thinking. So this is the Benefit one in Shelly. The tone is sort of similar but it's a lot lighter. So I suddenly understand why I like it so much. And then for good measure, I'll also swatch the one right next to it, which is called Iridescent Rose, which I always thought was a little bit more red, but since they call it a rose, I'll swatch it anyway. Oh, that's funny. I always thought that this was way too pigmented for me, but actually, when I compare it to some of these other pinks, it's really not that bad. See, you find out interesting things when you swatch all of your pink blushes. So these are all of my powder blushes in pink shades. Then I do have just a couple of cream and liquid shades. So let me just swatch those on the tops of my hand. So the first one I have here is from Clarins. This is the Glow to Go. I'm not sure if they even have this, but I wanted to include it because this is a really pretty blush. This is a cream stick blush and the shade is Glowy Pink. I'll swatch it over here. And because this is a cream, it blends out to be quite a bit more subtle than it looks here. I'll spread it out a little bit. See, and it's a true pink, but it has a little bit of that neonness in it. This is a really good formula. And I have this little cream blush from Fenty. And this is in the shade Strawberry Drip. I really like this formula as well. It's a little bit softer than the one from Clairin, but it is buildable. I don't really have to build it up a lot, but I'm going to do it just for the swatches. The shade is actually quite similar, but this one has a nice peachy, slight bit of peach in there. And on me, it actually turns a lot more peach than this. And I wanted to give you a Dutch example from a cream blush as well. So this is from Kruidvat. This is the Blushing Beauty Lip and Cheek Balm in the shade Soft Peony. I'm going to swatch it right here. So this is actually quite a soft one. As you can see, I went over about 8 times. And this is what you get. It's a lot more balmy as well, as opposed to creamy. But this does look really pretty on me. But this is a soft one. Then I'm very curious about this one, because honestly, until about 2 or 3 months ago, I wasn't really into pink blushes. And then I got really into pink blushes. And I forgot I had this one, which is a very fancy one. This is from Sisley. It's the Vito Blush Twist in the shade number 1 Petal. And I've had this in a project pan before because I did like it at some point. And I think this could be one of the best baby pink blushes for my skin tone that I have in here. But now that I look at it, it's actually quite similar to the Dior one. Or even more peachy. Maybe it's more similar to Orgasm. Yeah. But this formula is really nice. It is quite matte. And it's quite thick, but it blurs. It looks really nice. It feels really soft. Yeah, you can definitely see it's a different texture than these other ones. And then, oh, this is not finally. I actually have one more from the drugstore. This is a more recent one, but I haven't really talked about it on my channel. This is the Miracle Pure Infused Cream Blush from Max Factor in the shade Radiant Rose. And I bought this because I thought it was a nice baby pink, but it's actually a little bit more bright pink than I thought. But that's okay, it's still really pretty. It's sort of shimmery. It's a little bit more rose, so the name is very accurate, but it has a nice sheen to it. It's almost a little bit metallic, and that's why I wanted to swatch it as one of the lasts, because I feel like this could be quite similar to this little thing from Charlotte Tilbury. This is her Beauty Light wand in Glowgasm. Pinkgasm, I mean. I'm just going to swatch it here. And this is actually one of my favorite one and done cheek moments when I'm in a bit of a hurry. And this, just look at how it shines in the light. It's honestly really pretty. But if you want a dupe on a budget, I feel like this little cream blush from Max Factor could definitely be it. Just throwing that out there. So yeah, there you have it. I have a couple of more. I have a couple more, but those are all discontinued and I don't think anyone has them. So we're at 29 minutes of footage now. I'm just going to call it quits here. I didn't realize this would take so long. So let's do the quick overview. We have Dior, Shiseido, Chanel, Essence. We have ABH, ABH, ABH. We have L'Oreal. We have the loose powder blush from Givenchy. And we're moving on over here. We have the Atos one, the very bright one. Then we have 2 from Lunar Beauty. Then we have 2 from Benefit. Then we have NARS Orgasm. Then we have Shelly from Benefit. Then we have Sublime Flush and Iridescent Rose from Hourglass. And then we have our cream blushes. So this is the blush from Clairin. This is the one from Fenty, Strawberry Drip. This is the one from Kruidvat, which is still, as you can see, the most dewy out of all of them. Then we have this one from Sisley, this one from Max Factor, and then finally this one from Charlotte Tilbury. So, with my very flushed face and my very pigmented arms, I am now going to call it quits. I hope you enjoyed this video. Found it helpful in some way or amusing. Let me know if you want those face swatch. Thank you so much for watching. I will hopefully see you in the next one.